Welcome. Let's jump right into today's explainer, looking at the architecture of meaning and the human predicament. We're going to unpack something literally every single one of us deals with, the universal human experience of suffering, our lifelong search for meaning, and how different global traditions try to solve, the ultimate puzzle of human existence. If you've ever wondered why we strive so hard for things that eventually just fade, well, you're in exactly the right place.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Why doesn't success permanently stop suffering? I mean, it's a profound validation of our lived experience, isn't it? Think about it. We spend our entire lives chasing external achievements, wealth, power, fame, that perfect relationship, the ideal career. And sure, the text acknowledges that these things absolutely bring us great joy. They give us identity. But the satisfaction always seems kind of transient, doesn't it? We hit our biggest goals, we get exactly what we want, and yet that underlying vulnerability of life, it always seems to creep back in.
This brings us to Section 1, the human predicament, a fundamental feature of our lives.
From the very moment we're born until we die, human life is just fundamentally marked by uncertainty. We all encounter illness, loss, disappointment, aging, and ultimately mortality. This isn't just a run of bad luck or some occasional misfortune, it is an absolute, inescapable feature of existence. Everything we cherish is subject to change, and while pursuits like wealth, power, and love provide temporary meaning, they cannot permanently free us from suffering. Now, the text explains that we actively seek relief through these pursuits, and hey, they're beautiful things. They inspire us to strive, to create, to build entire civilizations. They soften life's unavoidable hardships and give us the daily purpose we need to just keep going. But because they exist in the external, physical world, they're essentially impermanent shields. Wealth can literally vanish in a single day, power fades with time, relationships change or end, and even the absolute strongest bodies eventually weaken. Since every single external source of fulfillment is subject to loss, none of them can be a permanent cure.
Let's see how this builds as we transition to Section 2, the biology of desire, our evolutionary hardware.
So, from an evolutionary perspective, our relentless pursuits of success and meaning, they aren't accidental at all. Natural selection actually wired our brains to operate this way. Success and pleasure are adaptive survival strategies. They're driven by complex neurochemical systems. We're talking dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. Throughout human history, our brains evolved to heavily reward behaviors that increased our chances of survival. But here is the catch. To keep us surviving and investing in the future, this biological hardware constantly generates new desires. It's built to motivate action and reinforce habits, not to just let us sit back and be perfectly content. Which brings us to a really fascinating concept, the hedonic treadmill. Basically, this is the psychological cycle where every achievement soon becomes ordinary, pleasures fade, and new desires emerge. Now, these biological adaptations are absolutely brilliant for keeping a species alive, striving and overcoming obstacles, but they trap us in this endless cycle of dissatisfaction. Our minds are continually seeking the next hit of satisfaction. We're essentially running on a treadmill, working incredibly hard, getting faster and faster, but existentially, we aren't actually moving forward into lasting contentment.
And that takes us to our third section, 4 paths to freedom, found in our world traditions.
Since our biology really just helps us cope and survive, we've got to ask the big question, is genuine, lasting liberation actually possible? To answer this, we can neutrally map out how different traditions diagnose and solve the human condition. It's like a giant puzzle. Buddhism identifies the root of suffering as craving and ignorance, offering a path of wisdom, meditation, and ethical living to reach nirvana. Then you have existentialism, which says the root is a lack of inherent meaning in the universe, so the path to freedom is through authentic choices and self-creation. Stoicism, on the other hand, argues that suffering is intensified by our own judgments rather than external events, pointing us toward virtue, reason, and accepting our limits. And finally, Advaita Vedanta locates the root in ignorance of our true nature, with the path to freedom being self-knowledge, or moksha.
Let's look a bit closer at 2 of these contrasting ideologies to really highlight the menu of human wisdom available to us. Stoicism teaches that peace of mind is found in mastering oneself. It's a completely internal focus, right? Accepting what is beyond our control and directing all that effort toward moral character. Contrast that with existentialism, which posits that meaning is found in creating oneself through authentic choices. This is an external responsibility. It's an active creation of purpose and dignity in a universe that doesn't predetermine one for you. Actually, scratch that. It's not just external. It's about projecting your inner will outward. These are incredibly different approaches to the exact same human vulnerability.
So, the crucial point is this. Despite their profound differences, all these traditions agree on one major thing. External achievements alone simply cannot provide lasting fulfillment.
Whether you're aiming for Stoic virtue, Buddhist nirvana, existential authentic living, or Vedantic self-realization, true transformation requires looking far beyond transient satisfactions. Every single one of these paths points toward a deeper transformation of consciousness. They all recognize that you literally cannot just acquire your way out of the human predicament.
Which leads us to our final arc, Section 4, the search for understanding, going beyond mere coping.
You see, the human journey isn't just about finding ways to cope with loss or mindlessly pursuing temporary happiness on that hedonistic treadmill we talked about. As the text states, the deepest philosophical question is not simply how to escape suffering, but whether suffering can become the doorway to greater understanding. Philosophy and spirituality invite us to move beyond just getting by. They challenge us to ask not only how can I live well, but who am I, and what is the very nature of reality? We seek meaning because we suffer, and we seek wisdom because meaning itself is incredibly fragile. The text reminds us that the friction of life, the hard stuff, can actually be the very catalyst for profound insight.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought from the text to reflect on long after this explainer ends. Is there a freedom that remains untouched by change? The answers might differ across traditions, but they all recognize that the path to genuine freedom begins with confronting rather than avoiding the reality of our condition. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today. Keep questioning, keep seeking understanding, and we'll catch you next time.